welcome.
What?
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 I can tell this is going to be a rough crowd this evening. Don't feel intimidated, Bill. This is normal for this group, so just roll with the flow and we'll try to give you some information and educate you along with the rest of the group, which needs the education today. Welcome. This is a presentation by the Alternative Book Club, an organization of people that decided to write some books, but also decided to get together and trade some ideas and do some strange things or some things that would probably help writers as they attempt to learn how to write, as we all are still trying to learn the best way to write. Today we have a presentation by one of our members, Nick Wolf. And with that, Nick is an engineer. Oh, you mind? Oh, my name is Keith Jones. I'm sorry.
Hi, Keith.
Need to introduce myself before we get to that. And I am a member of this group, and it's an interesting group to be a member of. And Bill, we welcome you to the group. Hopefully that'll work. That's why we need a microphone. Nick is an engineer, educator, and entrepreneur. He's the author of 4 books with personal and professional effectiveness. Nick is one of the founding members of Dynamic Speakers Toastmasters Club, which most of us are a member of, and the Alternative Book Club. His highest calling is to help ordinary people accomplish extraordinary things. And today, we're going to see one of those extraordinary things unfold in front of you. And Mark, I believe you've got things to pass out. Is that true? Or we're going to do that later? Okay. In time, that will happen. Please help me welcome Nick Wolf.
Yes, okay. Thank you very much, Keith. I used to be a good writer. Then I became a terrible writer. It's taken me a lot of hard work and effort to yet again become a better writer. All through high school, all through elementary school, I had an affinity for writing. I was pretty good at it. I won some awards, things like that. And then I went to college. More than that, I studied engineering and business. You know, outside of the humanities, colleges are very good at teaching you how to deal with information, how to analyze, how to synthesize, how to make recommendations. They teach you how to think. An extremely useful skill. However, the problem is with that is that although you can think, it's hard to connect. I became very good at talking from my head and not from my heart. Be able to share an idea, but not to make an emotional connection. And if you're trying to write, to speak, any communication that you want to do to become more effective, you need to also learn to speak from the heart. And that is the title of this presentation is Speaking from the Heart, or Writing from the Heart. There is a wide chasm between those who communicate and those who are striving to communicate. Who here has been to a professional conference? Who here remembers the last talk they heard from a professional conference? You guys are either very attentive or what have you. Because a lot of folks, at least when I went to these conferences, I walked out the door and I had very little idea about what was being talked about. However, I remember all the lyrics from the songs I used to listen to when I was growing up. I remember movies, how they impacted me. When I read The Lord of the Rings when I was 12 years old, I actually mourned the ending of the book because I had fallen in love with these characters and I didn't want the story to end. That kind of communication is what we're seeking for in our writing and in our speaking. And that's what I'm trying to convey to you with this talk today. So here I was, a college graduate, speaking and communicating in a very head talk manner. I tried to search for ways to become more connected with my heart and therefore connect with my audience. And one of the things I turned to was screenwriting. Now if you think about screenwriting, how is this to play with writing? Books are a very different medium, and that's an important thing to realize that. Because the tools that you use in screenwriting are very different, at least they can be very different than a book. Because all you have as a screenwriter, the only information the audience gets from you is the dialogue and in the visual images that are in front of you. There is no exposition that we write in the background. So I learned that in order to convey that message, I need to capture what message I want to give in a visual way, somehow, either in terms of imagery or actions by the participants, the actors, or maybe in the scenery. And this is what I want to encourage you to put into your writing. Put in visual language so that you are giving an experience for your readers. Because that's why we participate in entertainment. We go to entertainment not to read information. We go there to be transported into the world that the author has created for us. And that's what we want to try and do here. One of the first rules of screenwriting is to show, not tell. Because telling is clinical, it's distant. It's separate from the organization or from the thing in front of us. Whereas showing is experiential. So I want to give you guys an example of what I would have done at some point in the past and compare it to what I do now. I came home from work and I found my wife crying. She was frustrated about her career. I took the time to patiently listen. When she was done, I held her close and I told her, it's going to be all right. Now, is that good? Mediocre, I think. I'm going to read you an excerpt from the book that we most recently published, Spotlight on the Art of Significance, which is available in the back of the room. But this is an actual quote from that book. One evening I came home and I saw her on the couch, head in her hands. I asked her what was wrong. She looked up at me with eyes red and damp. She told me how sad and frustrated she was. She ended with, no matter what I do, I just can't win. I knelt beside her and held her tight in my arms. I told her, I understand you're frustrated, but you are making progress. Just keep working at it. Don't lose heart. Was that better? Did that convey more emotion, more experience? Did you see yourself looking down into a young lady's eyes with the streaks of tears going down her face? That's the experience I'm talking about. You want the reader to actually live it with you. That's what you're trying to get to. Now I'll go ahead and ask Mark to pass out the first exercise about a common character we know from literature. Ebenezer Scrooge. I mean, as I say that name, it's probably already putting in some ideas in your head about what Scrooge looks like. So I'm going to read this to you, and after a while we'll go ahead and analyze it a bit more. Oh, but he was a tight-fisted hand at the grindstone, Scrooge. A squeezing, wrenching, grasping, scraping, clutching, covetous old sinner. Hard and sharp as flint, from which no steel had ever struck out generous fire, secret and self-contained, and solitary as an oyster. The cold with him froze his old features, nipped his pointed nose, shriveled his cheek, stiffened his gait, made his eyes red, his thin lips blue, and spoke out shrewdly in his grating voice. A frosty rime was on his head, and on his eyebrows, and on his wiry chin. He carried his own low temperature always about with him. He iced his office in the dog days and didn't thaw it 1 degree at Christmas. External heat and cold had little influence on Scrooge. No warmth could warm, no wintry weather could chill him. That's Dickens, guys. You guys remember that? But do you see the imagery there? I want to ask Gloria to come up and try and capture some of the elements that made this a powerful piece of writing. So who would like to begin?
Boy, I love that second sentence.
What's that?
The squeezing, wrenching, grasping, scraping, clutching, covetous old sinner.
What is that? What images float in your mind when you read those words?
Oh, just somebody grasping for money. Well, the covetous means that he's grasping for things that he does not have, even if he already has an abundance of something else.
Grabbing, scraping. He's just wrapping everything into him. He's an equivalent of a vacuum cleaner somewhat. He's sucking up everything around him. He's sucking up all the life around him. Right? That's a good image. So we have. So how would you capture that in a bullet point?
Black hole.
In terms of what that is, not what it means, but what is that? When you are capturing that into, is that imagery? Is that?
Yeah.
So would you say imagery? Is that a fair word for it? Okay, so put imagery as one point. Okay, what else? Yes, sir.
Externally, and God added influence for Scrooge. No warmth could warm, no wintry weather chilling. So it shows like the picture I see like a tough, the toughness of the character.
Okay.
I mean, he's so determined and strong that there is no external like whether it's hot or cold can affect him.
So that's an effect. It shows like the end point of where he's going, what it leads to.
Right.
And this is great. I want you to go ahead and now, all you folks, actually that sheet in front of you, to take a moment and go line by line. If something jumps out at you, write down the sentence number, write down what you would call whatever you're thinking about, and why the language is important. So go ahead and take some time to do that now, please. Gloria, would you like to start with us? Since I'll ask you to come up here, so I'll let you go ahead and give yours first, if that's okay. Or if you have one. Do you have one?
I can put it down so I can.
Okay.
Want me to put the sentence?
No, just reference the sentence as what's written there, so everybody else knows which sentence you're talking about, and then what is how do you call it? What label do you give it? And then what language made you think of that?
Okay.
Turn to the audience, please. Good.
I'm going to go to sentence number 3,
Number 3, okay?
where it says solitary as an oyster. And an oyster is always closed, except for at times when it will open, but it does not stay open a long time. It's just very, very closed.
So that would be a metaphor, wouldn't it?
Yes.
You're trying to say something is something that it's not. That's a literary device called a metaphor. So, yeah, metaphor's great. Who else? Mark.
This is going to involve several sentences. 1, 3, 4 through 6. There's a lot of reference to familiar, the common experience presumed on the part of the users, the readers, which can be good. Most of us know and are familiar with the phrase "keep your nose to the grindstone."
Mm-hmm.
So that first sentence really grabbed it. He's really a taskmaster. On the other hand, not everybody is aware of properties of flint in number 3, so that could have some people scratching a little bit. 4 through 6 really compare Scrooge to winter. Now that is really good for North America above Mason-Dixon line, probably Northern Europe, Northern Asia. But if you're trying to sell this in Hawaii, they may not understand what you're trying to get at.
That's possible. So there's some regional, you should have some awareness of your audience. There should be audience awareness. It'll be 1 point, right? Is this large enough writing, guys? Can you guys all see it?
And if there's any errors, just let me know if I can change it.
Is this the right size?
The first word's not bad, the second word's gotten real small.
Okay, so let's try to make sure that we're that thick. Okay.
And then just regional.
And we said audience. Remember your audience. So that's a good way to capture it.
Experience of the audience.
And I like the fact that you're saying that there's some experience. Yes, Christine.
In sentence 3, secret, self-contained, and solitary is a wonderful alliteration.
Alliteration, that's a good term.
Lots of more.
Yeah. Just to finish up with Mark here, I think it's a great way that basically we're seeing that Scrooge is a personification of an idea, of winter. Scrooge is winter. It's an extended metaphor, but it's basically, yeah. So that's an idea. We're trying to, it's personification. It's trying to embody an idea in a person. So that's another way. Yes, please. Who else? Bill? Maybe try?
You want what I put down?
If you want to share it, that's fine.
Well, for one, I thought two is too cluttered, too much. Anyway, sentence 7, I put what I got out of it is it doesn't really say, but it depicts me as no soul. You know.
Empty.
Yeah, he's just no warming, no wind. So yeah, life basically outside of himself and everything affect him. He just has no soul.
He's
Warming, nothing chills him.
he's soulless and he's unchanging. He's fixed.
Right.
And that's a pretty powerful characterization for a character, because when we're writing, we're always expecting to see the central figure evolve somehow. So what is Dickens doing? He's going ahead and saying that there's no way that this man is changing. And that actually is a challenge for us readers to realize. It means that something really big is going to have to happen in his life in order to have him go in a different direction.
Well, it says too to me, it's way too much to describe. You know, I mean, you're trying to follow each word, so you're trying to put this picture, and it's like a mosaic of somebody you can't really get it all in one thought. It's way too many words to describe my thing. I mean, I'm a novice, but if you're asking me my opinion, that's what I think.
And it's definitely a valid opinion. And remember, we're working at it a
Too
bit.
superfluous.
We're going in here in a little bit more detail than a normal casual reader would. And I have my opinions about Dickens too. I think he's a bit too wordy in some cases. But that's not here nor there. The fact is, we're trying to show how this is how you really make a character vivid, is by putting a lot of this information into it. Maybe not one paragraph. If you spiced a lot of these terms over the course of several paragraphs or over a couple of chapters, you could get the same endpoint and not be as wordy as you say. So that's something to keep in mind as you write. How do I want to make sure I flesh out this character better? Does that make sense? Okay, other comments?
Up on that one, it says yours shows desperation.
Shows desperation. How so?
That same selection, every one of those things are things that our person moves towards as they get fairly desperate to accomplish them.
So as someone becomes desperate as they try to accomplish something. So what is Scrooge trying to accomplish in this case? I'm not trying to be critical, I'm just trying to make sure I understand what you're saying.
I think it's all he's got left.
That's interesting. So,
He doesn't have any person or anything that he cares about, so he throws himself into this activity thinking that will fulfill him.
and we learn later in the story that he's cut himself off from all these other aspects of life. So this is the one thing that he's left, and that's why he's grabbing so much. So yes, I think you're right, Chip. This is actually desperation. It's the one thing that I can hold on to. It's one thing that's never left me. whether or not it's my fault they left me or not, but it's the one thing. And that's a very important characterization, too. Great observation. So I'm going to try to capture that, but maybe the unknown agenda, or what the character doesn't even know, which now we can read, what we read into, so our implication or internal struggle or conflict. Anything else? Yes.
Number 2, old sinner. He's an old sinner. So he had been he has a history of being bad.
He's what?
He has a history of being bad person.
Oh, so is his history and that, and what does that mean for his character?
So what I understand is he has a lot of experience in whatever he is right now.
So he's been operating this way for a long time. When you see these behaviors, because they've actually gotten to his physical self here. Stiffened his gait, shriveled his cheek. This is something that has happened over decades.
Right. And that also connects to the point that he is unchangeable. He doesn't change very quickly. So he has been like that maybe for a long time, and he's going on with that.
Right.
So it's showing a timeline.
By implication, it's suggesting his history through the visual imagery. Absolutely. Anything else, Mark?
The picture that's painted is so much different than most of us want to be, that it really, history piqued the interest. Dickens is setting you up to wonder, how did he get there?
You're talking about the idea of contrast, because contrast is a very big part of contrast. A very big part of writing too, because it's when we see one thing and we see another thing, it's the difference, it's the obvious difference that makes something appealing. And it's useful both in writing as well as speaking, whatever it is. You always want to go to show the extremes, because that's usually the answer somewhere in the middle. But we definitely want to, if you put something that's so far out of the normal person's experience, that will call attention to itself, and it'll definitely make an impact with the reader. I think we're good. Thank you very much. So not yet done. Thank you, but yeah, thank you very much, Gloria. Yes, I appreciate that. That's right. Thank you very much, Gloria. Okay. Now I want to actually say that there's a couple other things that I used in the first example, and maybe you can pick them out. Okay. So let's go ahead and read this one again. One evening when I came home, I saw her on the couch, head in her hands. I asked her what was wrong. She looked at me with eyes red and damp. She told me how sad and frustrated she was. She ended with, "No matter what I do, I just can't win." I knelt down beside her and held her tight in my arms. I told her, "I understand you're frustrated, but you're making progress. Just keep working at it. Don't lose heart." What are some additional things that I tossed in last time? Dialogue. Can I ask you to come up again? Okay, add some more ideas? Okay, so dialogue. Thank you, Gloria. Okay, so we have dialogue. We're actually having the person say something. And when you hear it in your head, because when you say these things, you actually see somebody speaking these words out here. So again, it's more that immersive experience. Okay, what else did I do?
Describe this, the actual position.
The actual position?
Yeah, she was sitting on the couch. When you first came in, she was sitting on the couch. But this time she was sitting on the couch with her head in her hands. And
So I gave action. You actually see her on the couch with her hand like this. And you actually see her looking up at me with the eyes being red and damp and streaks of tears going down her face. So again, no longer are we observing from the outside. You're now looking over my shoulder into my wife's eyes. That's a very different perspective, isn't it? What else, if anything? So we say, I almost say immersive. Okay. Anything else? How are we doing on time there, sir? Very good. Okay, so go ahead and do the third exercise. Thank you very much, Gloria. Appreciate this time. Thank you, Gloria. Okay, so I'm asking you now with another exercise here to take some kind of bland statements and trying to add additional flair to them using some of these ideas here. So I would encourage you to pick up these ideas and try to pick one and try to change one sentence and then go to another sentence and use a different one. We're trying to round out our author's skill set here. So go ahead and take some time to do that now. Who would like to start us off? Mark.
This would be number 2. The statement is, there is so much wrong with that statement. Here you go. I checked the online 10 worst ideas list, and that statement used all of them.
That's a new one. That's exaggeration, right? That's something we can add to this list here, is exaggeration. That's okay. It's okay. It's all right. So
I sure did.
it's all right. It's okay. Good. We're good. Next one. Rebecca.
It's almost there.
Go ahead.
As I saw him tumbling over me, this is number 12. I knew in that moment that I'm not. As I saw him tumbling over me, aware of his dislocated thumb and also aware of his superior size, and choosing to save me from his crushing injuries instead of redislocating his thumb, then I knew that I loved him.
All right. Christine's been at Victor saying she was desperately wanting to hear this. So here I want to ask you to stand up and give it that good, authoritative Rebecca voice we all know and love, and give it a try again.
As I saw him tumbling over me, aware of his dislocated thumb, and also aware of his superior size, and choosing to save me from crushing injuries instead of redislocating his thumb, then I knew that I loved him. Oh.
Parts of that are true.
I gotta say I'm touched. Acting. Who else? Who's next?
That man? That guy.
Me? I did number 1. I thought we were going to go down blue. It said the original statement said my son made me smile. I put, today I was treated to a much needed moment when my sudden outburst of laughter gifted me with a smile.
Sudden outburst of laughter. Excellent. Very cool.
Another one on that.
Yes, sir.
This is from your story, as all can do with. My son made me smile at the way others smiled at him. That actually happened going into a church once late. My 3-year-old by my side, and everyone was smiling. Why did they smile? And I looked down, and my son was sitting there.
And it's different too. A 3-year-old smiles is just different than like a
Innocence.
10-year-old.
Oh, gosh, yes.
And
And
you have to
then-
watch out for 10-year-old smiles. You know they better.
Absolutely, could be. Christine.
I picked on number 9, I was embarrassed. The awkward moment when my earrings splashed into the tomato soup, leaving spots on my white shirt. It was embarrassing.
Very cool. What else? Mark.
This would be number 7. My date was an awful experience. After arriving 20 minutes late, my date treated me to a tofu burger and then expected me to pay my own way into the roller derby.
I've had a few dates like that. I've had a couple of dates where I'd rather be doing root canal work than doing that. So yes. Also a metaphor. Is this a fun exercise? Is this good? Is this fun? All right. We're about ready to get finished here. Do you guys have any questions or any comments about this? The point is, the whole idea behind this exercise is to give you practice in how to use more visualization, put more emotion into your writing, make sure you're showing and not telling. If you do that, your writing is going to be engaging and you truly will be writing from the heart. Thank you.